Well, good day to everyone and welcome to the live reaction show here with myself, Steve Wyss. And this week I'm joined by Spanish expert Ruairidh Barlow. How are you doing today, Ruairidh?
Yeah, not too bad, Steve. I've been nursing a hamstring injury, but I got back out on the pitch yesterday and managed to not injure my hamstring again. So that's my news of the week. Nothing else has happened as far as I'm concerned, football-wise.
I hope that you've not done your hamstring like Pedro Neto yesterday for Wolves. That looks a bad one for him. But you join us right now. We're in the middle of a lot of live action in the mainstream European leagues. The Manchester Derby, 2-0 to Manchester City after 70 minutes. I must say, City have done a job on them today. I've been a bit surprised, actually, how good they've been, because City, I don't think, have been quite right this year for me. And I did expect a lot more from Manchester United in a derby game. It might be kind of, maybe that's where they are, Rory. Maybe they're not that good, which would be quite plausible. It would be quite plausible based on performances. But I think City have been really good today. 2-0 up. For those who are after a live bet, it's been teasing the overs all game. It's been 2-0 for the last 20 minutes. The goal line of 2.5 is now around about sort of minus 140-ish. And I was going to say get on it, but Haaland's a massive chance there for the hat-trick. I think you've got to get on the goals here. Over 2.75 goals on the Asian is around even money. I just don't see it ending 2-0 really. Even Manchester United have got to go for it. So that would be my advice there. We're also keeping an eye on some games in France. Rennes against Strasbourg is 1-0 at half-time, and Leverkusen against Freiburg in Germany is currently 0-0. There's not a Spanish match in play right now. I think we're getting one kicking off in half an hour's time in the Bilbao fixture, Ruairidh. But I'm glad you're on this week, because last night, the biggest game in European football this weekend was last night, or yesterday afternoon, I might say. We couldn't watch it on TV over here in the UK because of the blackout. But Jude Bellingham, his brace of goals for Real Madrid, they go to Barcelona and win by 2-1. I saw a lot of your tweeting from this match yesterday, Ruairidh. What's your reaction from this match? A huge win for Real Madrid. Thoughts on El Clasico?
Yeah, listen, I mean, Carlo Ancelotti deserves a lot of credit for seeing early on that he should kind of build his side around Jude Bellingham, that he should give Bellingham this kind of advanced role and kind of build the offense around him, essentially. But also Carlo Ancelotti owes Jude Bellingham quite a few dinners, drinks, whatever Jude Bellingham wants his treats and his favours in. Carlo Ancelotti owes them to him, because Real Madrid were outplayed for about 50, 60 minutes of this game. They did control the last kind of 30 to 40 minutes of it, but ultimately Marc-Andre ter Stegen didn't make a save in that game. They had two chances. One of them wasn't even really a chance, in the sense that Bellingham just kind of struck it from 30 yards, hit the top corner, and then Bellingham again popping up in stoppage time, and it's a ball into the box. Luka Modric kind of deflects it with his foot. He fails to control it, and it bounces perfectly into the path of the onrushing Bellingham, who, to be fair, has made his living so far at Real Madrid out of pouncing on those balls in the box. But yeah, Real Madrid offered very little, but sometimes you just have a player that is above the game, is kind of rises to the occasion, somebody that is willing to take these games into their own hands. And I mean, with Real Madrid and Barcelona, we've seen it with Cristiano Ronaldo, we've seen it with Karim Benzema in more recent years, we've seen it with Leo Messi, of course, and Bellingham right now, he earned his comparison with them. He's started as well if any of those players would have been playing at the start of the season.
Yeah, he's 10 goals in 10 La Liga games now for Jude Bellingham. You saw this coming. You said on the pre-season show for La Liga, get on the over 6.5 Jude Bellingham goals, because you'd seen the idea of playing him in a much more advanced role in the pre-season, especially. But I mean, from a betting perspective now, Ruairidh, I mean, what is a value price for him to score at any time? Because he's not going to score 38 goals, is he, this season? Surely it has to slow down. Or is he in such an advanced role that you got to keep backing him? Some people ride a wagon until they fall off it. And, at the minute, anyone backing Jude Bellingham goals is massively in profit week on, week out. Do you see this continuing? Could it just be a purple patch?
I mean, listen, continuing at this rate would be unforeseeable, outstanding. It's really hard to kind of forecast Bellingham scoring kind of 30 to 40 goals this season, even though he has been very good. What I'll say is that Real Madrid have been finding ways to win games at the start of this season, but not necessarily always opening teams up, always kind of really dominating these games, or they'll be in control as they were against Barcelona, but struggling to find those openings. And Bellingham has popped up with those important moments and those important goals. So Bellingham is going to be in those areas. When Real Madrid are playing well, he will be scoring some of the goals, probably, if not the majority of them. But you'd have to see it kind of tapering off a little bit. Listen, I mean, if people want a reason to follow the Because We Win Instagram account, I recommended Bellingham anytime at plus 200 for the Clasico, and it came in, and plus 200 right now for me is huge value on Bellingham, because games. I mean, I think he's one of those occasion players.
It was actually a fantastic game for the at Because We Win team. You had that great bit of advice on Instagram. Will White had his dog of the week was Real Madrid to win. The Bayer Leverkusen have just scored against Freiburg. RJ's dog of the week is Bayer Leverkusen to score 2 goals in the first half. So he's got 9 minutes for another goal, and every single hot dog pick from that show will hit this week. So keep an eye on that one. But plus 200, that was a massive price for Jude Bellingham. That's probably the biggest perhaps he would be all season in a league game now. What is a good price? I mean, it's Real Madrid against Valencia next week. There isn't actually any odds anywhere for an anytime scorer yet that I can see. If I priced it, say, plus 100, even money on Bellingham to score, is that now a value price? Do we need to look at him in terms of the numbers of what Messi and Ronaldo used to be?
I think it's hard to do that necessarily just yet, but look, at even money, I would be backing that right now. I think it's one of those ones where you're going to have to read it week to week right now. So listen, Real Madrid have got a break now. They're going to be playing Valencia off 3-4 days rest, which they don't usually get. Bellingham himself has barely been rested all season. He's missed 1 game for Real Madrid. So coming off that rest against a Valencia side that fight hard, and they're not a bad side this season, but looking at it in terms of kind of quality, Real Madrid are going to outclass them in terms of quality. So I'd say, looking at that Valencia game, even money is very fair price kind of thing. Even I'd be backed into kind of minus 120. I think you're still kind of getting value for money. If you are to come up against the likes of Real Betis, who have a bit more quality, are likely to be a bit more sturdy against Real Madrid, that's the sort of game where I would maybe kind of ease off it and think, right, I'll leave Bellingham alone this week. I think you really have to take into account the team he's playing and how many goals Real Madrid are likely to score in general, as opposed to necessarily just whether you think Bellingham is going to be on form.
Still 2-0 in the Manchester derby, rather worryingly for these overbackers, which I took a piece of over 3 actually about an hour mark. City are in that sort of mood now where they're passing it around and they look content with the score. So I'm starting to get a little bit worried now, Rory. But just an update on Rennes against Strasbourg. I wouldn't personally get involved in this game. I quite like the unders pre-game. Patrick Vieira is involved for Strasbourg. They play dour football, but even he's forced to sort of open up now, which is an unnatural game plan for him. It's 1-0 to Rennes. I think they'll probably win the game. Probably 2-0 is the most likely outcome, but I wouldn't want to get involved in there. Bayer Leverkusen, don't they look a good side these days? They look excellent. Still 1-0 for them just before half-time. Let's talk about the Liga title race then, and how yesterday's result affects things in the betting. And Real Madrid, unsurprisingly now, minus 112 favourites to win La Liga with Bet Rivers. Barcelona have drifted to plus 150. I know pre-season you actually liked Barcelona to win the league, and I know they've got a lot of injuries at the minute. Will there be a time to perhaps bet on Barca to win the league, even as a back-to-lay sort of option down the line? And is plus 150 big enough? And of course, there's a couple of teams that we're going to talk about as well. Girona in a minute, but Atletico Madrid plus 600. Is this a 2-horse race or is it a 3-horse race? Can Atletico Madrid get into it?
I think right now it's definitely a 3-horse race, because Atleti, for me, are playing the best football in Spain. I mean, they beat Real Madrid pretty comfortably in the end, and Bellingham struggled to kind of really get involved. I think Atleti, they are the best side in Spain right now. But again, you're factoring in injuries, and that's what kind of talk with Girona as well. It's maintaining this. I mean, Real Madrid and Barcelona go into every game kind of expecting to win, and Atleti do to an extent as well, but the pressure and the demand of that is a little bit less. So yeah, I think Atleti are in this race for me. They are still the outsider. And look, in terms of backing Barcelona, I think plus 150 is a fine place. I think there's Real Sociedad coming up next week. I think if Barcelona win that, their odds will shorten again. If it were me, I'd stick by my Barcelona kind of bet, because I think Real Madrid, as I say, they're getting the results here and they're playing reasonably well. except in the first kind of 60 minutes yesterday. But they're not a side that I see kind of improving that much week on week. I think from here to the start of the season, you can't really say that you're seeing a different side. You're seeing one that's set up for Bellingham. Presumably, Vinicius and Rodrigo are going to improve. Presumably, they're going to get a little bit more solid defensively. But that's something that we presumed at the start of last season as well from then. And they hit kind of January, February, and they struggled more. So yeah, I think I'd stick with Barcelona for now at the very least. And if you want to get involved, 150 is probably, it's not going to get too much longer than that unless they drop points in the next couple of weeks.
It's all about timing, and I think I've timed the bet well in the Man City game. 3-0 to Manchester City. Phil Foden is on the score sheet, a Haaland assist. Quite painful for a fantasy Premier League player like myself who doesn't own Haaland at the minute. He's had a massive game for points-wise, but City deserved this one completely. Onana made a save, but didn't really push the ball out properly enough. And 3-0, we can't argue with this one. Manchester City suddenly looking really not back to their best, but looking really strong again. Man United, I think, have got issues, Ruairidh, but 3-0. Hopefully, for those who took the over 3 line or over 2.75 Asian line, there can be another goal to fully cash. But that it just wasn't ending 2-0 the way things were going with City there. So, yeah, it's all about timing. And this La Liga race, I think it's going to be an interesting one this season. I really do. I think there could be some swings and roundabouts with it. One team who are right up there right now, level on points with Real Madrid, I think they are, Girona. Now, I've had a lot of people have asked me about Girona recently. Usual questions: are they the real deal? What's going on with Girona? You know, when you start winning as many games as they have, I think they've won every game bar a couple, just one defeat, and that was to Real Madrid off the back of a short week. Plus 50-1 to win La Liga. Mm-hmm. What's the story with Girona then? And tell people a bit more about this club, because they are really starting to catch the eye across Europe, Rory.
Yeah, listen, Girona were promoted last season, playing good football under Michel Sanchez, who's been kind of a young, ambitious manager who's always played pretty good football, but never really had the success. And he's been trying to, get teams up, and he got up with Huesca and he got up with Rayo, but struggled to keep them in the division. Last season, he managed to make enough adjustments to keep Girona up while playing that kind of nice, ambitious style of football, pretty open, attacking, flair stuff. Girona have got a few more resources. They are linked to the City group, so the likes of Yangel Herrera, the likes of Savio, who's on loan, a young Brazilian winger who's really starting to make waves in Spain. They have access to those players, but neither are they a side that's spending lots and lots of money in the transfer window. It's kind of 10 to 15 million over the summer, I think it was, but they have been very efficient with that money. The likes of Viktor Sagankov and Artem Dovbyk, 2 Ukrainian internationals. So yeah, I think we all thought that Girona would be decent enough this season, but we probably predicted kind of more of a mid-table showing for them. I mean, it's a team that finished 10th last season. They lost a lot of players. They lost their top scorer. They lost Oriol Romeo to Barcelona. What's so successful about them? They are confident, and that's part of the reason that they're winning so many games. And I think when they hit a rough patch, I think it's more difficult for the likes of Girona, who don't necessarily have that individual quality, to kind of get back on track as the likes of Real Madrid, Atleti, Barcelona would. So I ultimately don't think they'll be in the title race come the end of it. Top 4, top 6, I think I can see them around there because, as I say, I mean, we talk about it so often. Teams that don't play in midweek have so much more time to prepare. Teams that are playing Champions League, Europa League, they basically have a recovery session, 1 day's preparation for the next match, and that's then. They don't train or work on their shape too much during the week at all. So yeah, I think the likes of Girona, I think they'll be sticking around because they are sustainable. They do have a set system of play that's been in place for 3 years now in terms of kind of their second division promotion campaign last year and now this season as well. And yeah, some really quality players.
They play very, very good football. And I've seen a lot of people, including myself, have been cashing on their overs a lot this year and also their handicaps. They did cost quite a lot of people on Friday nights, only winning 1-0 against Celta Vigo. Mm-hmm. And I only lost a small amount on that game. I took the team total over 2.5, got nowhere near. I actually forgot that Celta were managed by Rafa Benitez, so I might have known he would try and stifle them. But, you know, they're a good team from a bettor's perspective. again, a wagon team if you're looking generally for goals, because their normal style is sort of to play pretty open and attacking football, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And I mean, in Savio, as I say, he's kind of capable of beating his man. Sigankov is very creative. He's a wand of a left foot. Dovbyk really kind of gets after it. And for me, kind of the unsung hero, he's well sung about in Spain now these days, but kind of on a European level, Aleix Garcia in midfield is just, he's in sensational form. For me, he's been the best midfielder in Spain this season, with exception to Bellingham. If I can include him as a forward, he's been absolutely exceptional. So yeah, they do play a lot of really nice football. You look at the goal that beat Celta. I mean, it's fantastic play. It's kind of a 1-2 through midfield, backheeled into the path of Yangel Herrera, who then slots it in right in the corner. They play really nice football. I'd say with the kind of likes of Celta, I mean, you look at Benitez again. You really have to know which team they're facing, because I was at the game in Cadiz where they won 1-0 there as well. And it's teams like Cadiz, teams like Getafe, teams like Celta, who you know are going to sit deeper and cause them more issues. Those are the teams where they're not going to score overs. Whereas you look at the likes of kind of Almeria, who they beat 5-2 the weekend before, those teams are a little bit more open. Granada, if they play them, they're going to be more open. They're going to be willing to take Girona on.
It's about the matchup, isn't it? Because you're right, the teams like that who they're doing very well, but they certainly lack the same individual quality that, say, Real Madrid or Barcelona or Atleti have. They will have some problems, and eventually teams will start to respect them more. And that's picking your spot, so to speak. Top four, right? They're actually -175. There's only one book worldwide that I can see priced up at the minute. Monday morning, usually the top four market will be back online again for everywhere. -175 for the top four. That just feel a little bit short to me, Rory. Can they crack the top four this year, do you think?
I mean, look, they can, but Real Sociedad are in such fine form right now. It's hard to really back against La Real, who have the resources, they have the experience. Mikel Oyarzabal looks like he's back to his best. It's a boring answer, but like I think that's too short for me. I think Girona, you want to look at the markets, look at Europa League. I think that's where you get a little bit more value, and they're still competing with the likes of Villarreal, Betis, Sevilla, good teams with a lot of history, big teams. But yeah, Girona into the top four, it would be a gargantuan achievement if they managed it.
50-1 to win La Liga. Now, I was trying to think the last time one of the big three didn't win this league. Probably you're talking Rafa Benitez's Valencia, or maybe that Deportivo team of, I think it was 2009, 99, I think, the Deportivo team with Jalmini and that in. I mean, 50-1. Could we potentially get a Leicester City type story here, or is this one of those where you just forget about it? They can't possibly do it.
Yeah, I would be delighted if they could be in there right up until the end, but I think it is a forget about it case. I mean, you mentioned this to me kind of in the lineup, and I was kind of having a think about it, and I was thinking, well, I mean, they are playing really good attacking football. They don't have those kind of midweek games as well. But if you think back to that Leicester City Championship, they didn't really have much competition. I mean, Spurs were the closest, and they played well, obviously, that season, but they failed in those kind of big moments, particularly that Chelsea game, obviously, where they relinquished the title. And yeah, the likes of Chelsea, Man City, Manchester United, they were just nowhere near it. So yeah, I think if you look at it, Real Madrid are still winning lots of games. 9-10 wins out of 11. Barcelona, okay, they're a few points back now, but they're still winning lots of games. And Atleti too. I mean, Atleti will go joint top, I think, if they win their game in hand. So yeah, the other teams here aren't failing. They're not really off form. So I think Girona have to be a very, very long shot. I'd still want hundreds to be putting money on that.
I got some questions here from James Tam. Welcome in. Thanks for joining the show, James. So he says, thanks for the tips. He's got a couple of questions here. This is one for me, I guess. Marseille, Lyon later. Should we continue fading Lyon? Answer there, James. I think Lyon will be up for this one. It's called the Olympico. There's a history. These matches can go either way. And Marseille are not known for being very trustworthy in these sort of games. I'd actually think there's a few goals tonight, James. I'm not necessarily thinking Marseille to win. And then he also asked about Napoli, AC Milan. I might pawn this one to you, Rory. I'm not really Serie A, an expert in Serie A as much, but I mean, Napoli, AC Milan. What I do remember from last season's Champions League matchup is that AC Milan seemed to have their number, and it's I think they've won the last 3 now against them, or unbeaten in their last 3. So I would actually be looking towards the AC Milan handicap in that fixture. I don't know if you follow either of those two sides that much, Rory, Syria.
Not massively, but I mean, I have been covering Napoli a little bit just for the fact that they are in Real Madrid's group in the Champions League. And listen, I mean, Rudy Garcia is not bad at kind of those bigger games. You'll know more about this in France than me, but he's one of those managers that I tend to back against. I tend to kind of add an extra bit of skepticism. So yeah, I would be looking at Milan. And I think, yeah, we might talk about it a little bit later, but the Milan sides are two of the sides that I like the most in Serie A right now, in terms of sides that have kind of settled teams that have been in with the same manager for kind of 2-3 years now. Those are sides that I really quite like. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily play too much into the Napoli home advantage. Although we do know that if they get kind of on their form, on their funk, I mean, Napoli have the players to demolish anyone in Serie A.
Yeah, I don't know what the status of Victor Osimhen is heading into tonight. I've not actually looked at that. He was an injury out, wasn't he, this week? Just on some live games here. RJ was very unlucky with his underdog pick. Leverkusen won, Freiburg 0 at half-time. They could have easily got a second goal. Excellent side these days, Leverkusen. I would advise an in-running play here to Leverkusen -1 Asian handicap from the 1-0 position. So if it ended 2-0 exactly, you'd get your money back. But I think 3-0 is a really good chance here. But I'd rather back that than the overs, because Freiburg look awful. They don't look like they're offering a thing. They've had 2 shots in the entire first half, and Leverkusen are completely dominating them. Running against Strasbourg, it's still 1-0. Again, it's Patrick Vieira. He's just not going for it. He just, whatever it is about this manager, he'll probably wait till the last 10 minutes to try. I would hate to be a fan of a team managed by Patrick Vieira. Nothing against Patrick, lovely lad, great player, but he's just too negative for me, Rory. He's just too negative. So yeah, I couldn't advise anything in the Rennes game. But talking of the Milan clubs, Inter against Roma is 0-0, 23 minutes in. It's a big game that for the challenge this week on the European show. Will White and RJ a little bit against each other in terms of the goal line, and all eyes on there certainly for the second half. Let's switch to Premier League. I know this is a time of week where a lot of viewers are interested in things developing, and really the flavour of the week and the month, really, of the season is Spurs, I would say. Roy, everyone wants an opinion about Tottenham Hotspur. Are they a serious title challenging threat? They went 5 points clear on Friday night. That's been reduced now over the weekend. Plus 800 with Bet Rivers to win the Premier League. And what is your take on Tottenham Hotspur and Ange Postecoglou? Top 4 position now. They are minus money, -112 for the top 4. Several of the guests on this show have been advising Tottenham to get in the top 4 plus money recently. Do you see them as a top 4 banker, and are they a dark horse for the title?
Yeah, I'd look at them as a strong candidate for top 4. I think they'll get in the top 4. Not necessarily no bother, but I think they'll be in and around there, no problem. And yeah, in terms of the title race, I think if you look at England now, I mean, we think of it as the most competitive league in Europe, and certainly in terms of like the number of big sides, the number of sides that can invest lots of money, it is. But in terms of winning titles, Manchester City are far and away kind of dominating this league over the last kind of 5-6 years. So ultimately, I think you have to measure it against your expectations of Manchester City. Do you expect them to be way down on last season? Do you expect them to kind of taper it off? I mean, they've lost a couple of players. That's where I think you have to make your own evaluation. I personally think that the gap from City to everyone else, even last season when Arsenal put up such a good fight, and even Arsenal have improved this season as well, I just think I like City too much. But if you do think that City are not necessarily as reliable as they were last season, then yes, Spurs I think will be in there with Arsenal. But I personally just can't see past City again.
They're -152 favourites to win the league currently with Bet Rivers. Arsenal and Liverpool +500, Tottenham 800, 40-1 bar. Is it one of those situations, if I said, right, here's $1 million right now in your hands, Rory, who are you putting the $1 million on? You would go on City.
100%, yeah. Pep Guardiola is kind of unparalleled when it comes to winning leagues. I mean, he gets a lot of slated for his kind of European record, and he went a long time without winning a Champions League. But now kind of the pressure's almost off for him as well. They can play with freedom. There's no pressure to win in Europe now. So yeah, I think Guardiola, if you look at his league record, it's something ridiculous. I think it's like 3-4 leagues that he's not won in his entire career. So yeah, I mean, you're betting against that and against the side that is, let's be honest, probably the best run in England. So yeah, $1 million, I'd put him on Guardiola, no problem.
We've got Jack Wright on the reaction show next week, so I'm going to quiz him more heavily about EPL. Certainly the title race in top four again. In the relegation market, it is the bottom three currently are the promoted teams. They've been awful, haven't they, in terms of results, all of them, especially I think Burnley and Sheffield United have been disappointing. Luton have actually probably been a bit better than people expected. But Sheffield United now minus 700 to be relegated, Luton Town minus 400. Then you're into plus money territory because the books still rate Burnley. I think Burnley have been absolutely awful. And I think that Vincent Kompany's going to have to change his tactics if they want to stay up, because I don't think he's got the players to play that way in the Premier League at this point in time. Plus 175 Burnley to go down looks a big price. Bournemouth plus 150. Everton now plus 175, but they won today. And they look like they're probably going to have enough over the course of the season. It's been terrible, hasn't it, for the promoted sides this season, Rory? Do you think Burnley plus 175, have they got to change something?
Listen, I mean, Vincent Kompany, will he make those adjustments? I guess you're kind of betting on his development as a manager too, because I remember Anderlecht, he was flamed out basically. I mean, he was player there, he was captain, then he was kind of a player manager, and he ended up just being the manager, but wasn't successful with these Belgian giants. And I think that was partly in response to him kind of really doubling down on his ideals, kind of plan A, as opposed to plan ABC, as some managers do. And so, yeah, you've got to weigh up whether you think Kompany's got it in him, whether he's developed, whether he's changed and decided that I can play in different ways. So far, it would suggest that he maybe doesn't think that. We're about a quarter of the way into the season now. So I think, yeah, plus 175 are odds that I quite like on Burnley, it has to be said. And I think in terms of, quality, I'd say they are probably within the bottom three in the Premier League. So yeah, I would be tempted to back them into that. But yeah, I think if Kompany does change something, it's probably going to be in the next 5-6 games. So I'd keep a really close eye on them if you're not willing to back them just yet. And then in 5-6 games, if nothing's changed, then yeah, go further in on that.
And this is also now linked to the sack race, which I love talking about this every week to the guests. Premier League sack race. Paul Heckingbottom is minus 600 favourite to be next out of a job. He keeps hanging on, and they've been so bad, I think at some point they might just have to fire him, even if they can't get the replacement they want. Andoni Iraola, for manager you're very familiar with, that was a massive result for him yesterday against Burnley, beating them 2-1. I know a lot of people fancied him at a big price and have backed him at a big price to be next manager out, but he has drifted to plus 750 now after that result yesterday. Kompany's into plus 900. Now, he was as big as 25-1 not too long ago. Kompany, for me, is someone, could he walk? I mean, I don't think they're like to sack him, but could he walk just to, it just doesn't feel like it's working for him there. But in terms of Andoni Iraola, I think he's got another problem. I think his style of football doesn't work with the players he's got at Bournemouth. I don't think they're good enough. In the Spanish league, it's a lot different. So is he another manager where he's got to change his style, or do you back the Bournemouth players to sort of get it right? And, it can take a few months to get that, instill that style of play.
Listen, there's one obvious time to sack a manager from here on out, and that's the November international break. Before Bournemouth get to that international break, they've got Liverpool in the EFL Cup, then they've got Manchester City away from home and Newcastle at home. Tricky fixtures, to say the least. So I would have said that Bournemouth would have given Iraola a little bit more rope than generic kind of how they would have with other managers, because they sacked Gary O'Neill, who kept them up. And so they went for a different style. They went out on a limb, and I think they saw at least Iraola as the kind of man to kind of really progress them as a club. That said, one win from your opening, what will it be, 12 games at that point? If they are kind of really mired in the relegation zone, I think it could be quite problematic. After the international break, Sheffield United away from home, Villa at home, Palace away, then you get into Manchester United and Luton. So yeah, I think it is a really big call from their point of view. if it were me, I'd be tempted to kind of back him just because I know how good Iraola can be. And he has quite a idiosyncratic style of football. He's very kind of precise in what he wants. But ultimately, I probably see him getting sacked before Christmas. Ultimately, I think it's timing and when you think that's going to happen. In terms of price, if he's moved out just now after those kind of games against likes of Liverpool, Newcastle City, he's going to move back in quite a lot, I imagine. So yeah, now's the time if you think.
I think it could be one of those situations for those who can do it is on like a request a bet for him to be sacked before Christmas or sacked before the end of 2023, because I agree, it just doesn't feel right. Whenever I see him in an interview there, whenever I see his side play, he's obviously a very good coach. He's got great tactics, but I just don't think it works with this Bournemouth side. And I'm a little bit similar with Vincent Kompany. I'm convinced I'm with you. I think the next international break, at least two managers do bite the dust. Very likely that Heckingbottom will go. It might just be a matter of timing. It might be a matter of hours. So that Monday, who goes first? So it's an interesting market. There's a lot of money now tied up in this market because we haven't had a manager go yet since the Wolves boss early in the season. So it's going to be very interesting to see which way it goes in terms of the Premier League sack race. But I'm actually now starting to think probably Heckingbottom is the deserving favourite, really. It's just they need a result. They've got Wolves next. I think they need to get 3 points ASAP. All right, let's move on then. Manchester City have beaten Man United 3-0, by the way. That is a confirmed score. We're going to switch to a couple of other leagues now. Bundesliga. I watched an absolute demolition in the second half yesterday. Bayern Munich against Darmstadt. It just felt wrong, Rory. I mean, I was like, come on, call off the dogs. 8-0 in the second half against Darmstadt, who Bayern had a man sent off after 4 minutes in this game. And Darmstadt somehow contrived to have 2 men sent off themselves before half-time. I mean, how stupid is that? At least go in half-time and man up, surely. And then, I'm not joking, it could have been 10 or 12, genuinely. Like, Bayern did not ease up right until the end. They were after goals. 8-0. Kane scored a hat-trick, including one from the halfway line. I've got to be honest. I think it was awful. I was almost cringing watching it, wishing I was kept back in the goals, because normally teams they do go easy eventually, don't they? So, but anyway, Bayern now minus 350 to win the Bundesliga, and Harry Kane minus 190 to win the Golden Boot. I think that's starting to become a big price. He's only 2 behind Serhou Guirassy, who's injured for at least a month. So that is a situation I'm currently monitoring. Did you see that result and did you think, oh, here we go again? It just seems too easy for Bayern Munich at times. The team just give up on them, don't they? It's not a great watch, really.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Kane will be the top scorer in Germany this season. I'm 99.999% certain of that. He's the best goal scorer in that league, playing on the best team, who's likely to win the Bundesliga. I think, Bayern, the results have been decent enough for Thomas Tuchel, but not all has been rosy there, which I think probably influenced their decision to really go after it against Darmstadt and really kind of put out a statement of intent. That will call off the dogs from the press in Bavaria for a little bit and give him a little bit more breathing space, I think. But yeah, Dortmund up next week. It could be a really entertaining tie with them. As I say, that 8-0 win might affect the price for that game, because it's obviously you see a team win 8-0 and you're more likely to favour them. But as I say, not all has been rosy against the Dortmund side that can be a little bit tricky under Edin Terzic. I mean, we've seen that in the Champions League. So yeah, I think it's an interesting one to look at next week, and I'm sure that will be kind of covered a little bit in our betting show in midweek.
The thing is, Rory, in terms of Bundesliga outright, minus 350 Bayern, they probably are going to win the league, but I don't think I'll be interested myself this season, and I'll tell you why. Because there's some good sides in the Bundesliga. Bayer Leverkusen, if they hold on right now, they're going to go back to the top of the table. You've got Leipzig, I think, are an excellent side. Dortmund are no mugs. And it's just one of those where, because the quality of the opposition has improved this year, maybe Bayern are not as much of a banker as they used to be. They should still win the league. But, it's one of those where I think, there's some really poor teams in the bottom 4 or 5 Bundesliga right now, and all these top sides are going to batter them. Darmstadt are really poor. You got Köln, Bochum. Mainz look ridiculously bad on Friday. Heidenheim, I think, are going to drop down like a train soon. Some terrible defenses on show. There's goals are flying everywhere in Germany. You're right about the golden boot. I think now Kane, unless he breaks a leg or goes down bad, that's a banker in it. I mean, Girona, he could be out for a bit longer. That looks minus 190 is a bigger price than he was last week, and he scored a hat-trick. So I don't work that one out. I don't actually know why he moved from minus 200 to minus 190. Betting's a funny game sometimes, it really is. And before we finish the show, just to kick off now, second half, Leverkusen against Freiburg. I do like that Leverkusen in the second half to win the second half. If you got a chance of betting on that, it's still 1-0 Rennes against Strasbourg, and still Strasbourg is sitting back, probably waiting for a last 2-minute onslaught, no doubt. Liga and Serie A, bit of title talk here. Bit unfair really to talk much about Serie A because the contenders are playing later and Inter Roma's 0-0 at the moment. Juventus won 1-0 last night. It was about 100th minute goal, I think. They're actually top of the league. And it got me thinking, they're not in Europe this season. In Liga and Monaco were going well. They lost today. Teams, we mentioned Girona earlier as well, teams that are not playing in Europe these days, but are up there challenging. That's a massive advantage, isn't it? How much do you factor that in when you're betting and predicting and analysing matches?
I tend to factor it in quite a lot. I mean, you obviously have the trade-off that generally those sides that aren't in Europe, and this isn't really the case with Juventus, but generally the sides that aren't in Europe don't have the same quality as the teams that do. But with Juventus, obviously, that factor isn't there. So it's kind of a different kind of puzzle to kind of unpack. But yeah, I think Juventus will be going strong throughout the season until the end of the season. Once you have that rest, once you have that time to prepare for other sides, and particularly with Max Allegri, who's not necessarily the most free-flowing manager, but if you give him more and more time to kind of prepare these games against kind of the middle of the pack, so to speak, which is where Serie A side and any side at the top of the league, it's those games where teams trip up and eventually lose leagues, as opposed to the big games. For me, obviously has an influence, but the big games tend to kind of even themselves out quite a lot, I find. Whereas, it's those middle of the pack games off the end of a kind of Thursday, Wednesday night game, off the end of those international breaks where I think they really there's problems, I think. But yeah, for me, Juve, they're still outsiders. As I say, I like the Milan sides. I like Inter and I like AC. I think for me, those are the two favourites. But Juventus, if they end up in kind of March time, still in and around there, still kind of top of the league or so, they'll have a lot more gas in their legs than the likes of Inter or Milan. So yeah, it's a tough one to call. I think to go from what kind of 7th, 8th, I mean 6th maybe without the points. I forget where they were without the points deduction, but to go from kind of so far off it to winning the league, it wouldn't be the first time in Serie A, but for me, it's a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah, they're third favourites to win Serie A at the moment, plus 350 with Bet Rivers. Inter plus 110 and AC Milan plus 225. Napoli look a generous plus 800. I don't think they'll win the league, but that does look a little bit overpriced for an excellent team. It is a wide open race in Serie A. In France, PSG had a wild match today. They blew a 2-0 lead against Brest, but then got lucky given the late penalty. They're minus 455 to win Liga. I get this asked a lot every year. Can anyone challenge them? And it's so frustrating that there's no one can be consistent, Rory. I mean, they've not been that great in the last 3-4 years. Lille beat them to the title during the COVID year. You know, the minute Nice are going very well, but I think they lack goals. Good defense, but they lack goals. Monaco keep dropping random points. And Lille are up to 4th place now. Simple answer is PSG will win the league. Just they will. They don't need masses of points to win it. That's the thing here. Probably 80, 85 is enough because there's no other teams. It's so frustrating, Rory. No one else seems to be able to challenge them. I think, in a way, Germany's been very similar at times. So, I would much rather back PSG than to win their league than Bayern myself, just because I don't think the standard of opposition is there in France right now for them. There's not. If you said to me who's the second best team in France at the moment, I couldn't give you a definitive answer. It could be any one of like 4 or 5 on any given week. And Nice, like I said, I just don't see them lasting. I think they've got a good defense, good chance now of top 4, but yeah, it's one of those where it's a shame. It's a shame. I just wish someone could really lay down the gauntlet to PSG and actually do it, Rory. I mean, it happens in football like that sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, Luis Enrique is a pretty, again, idiosyncratic manager. He likes things his way or the highway. It's a young team there, so they're probably adapting to a lot of what he's trying to implement. Whereas you look at the likes of Spain or Barcelona, or even Celta Vigo beforehand, they were teams that Luis Enrique kind of had a lot in common with their philosophy beforehand. So it's going to take a little bit more time for PSG, I think. And Luis Enrique likes to press a lot. PSG before with Neymar, Mbappe, and Messi weren't exactly a pressing masterclass, were they? So I think PSG are only likely to get better, in my view, even if they have lost a lot of quality. But yeah, and if I can just kind of go towards that kind of in play bets, Athletic are currently playing Valencia in La Liga, and it's 0-0 right now. We're about 15 minutes or so in, but if this game goes into kind of 30, 40 minutes without any goals, I'd say Athletic and unders is a really nice angle to go at, because Athletic aren't a side that scored a lot of goals. Valencia are a side that not necessarily defensively amazing, but away from home will try and keep it as tight as possible. And plus 220 that comes back in right now. So that's really quite nice. So you could even go under 3.5, which I think is a really safe bet, and then really kind of get your money's worth, I think, still.
The goal line in play at the minute is an Asian over or under 2. Will White's got a pick in this game for the challenge. -1 Asian handicap on Athletic Bilbao. Big price. I think it's like plus 130 or something. Would you reckon he's got a chance in that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's got a chance. I always have a degree of caution with Athletic because they don't have a goal scorer. And so that means they can play as well as you like. They could be Pep Guardiola's Barcelona, but the chances are they're probably not going to score 3 or 4 goals unless the opposition really kind of throws the towel in. So yeah, I always have that degree of caution for Athletic, but I like them to win this game at home. They've been in reasonably good form. They have all of their kind of best attacking players fit. So I think it'll still be a struggle for them, but I think they'll probably end up winners in this. And I don't see too many goals if I know Rubén Baraja well away from home.
Well, you would not believe this. Strasbourg have equalised against Rennes. Unbelievable. It's like probably their first shot of the second half on target. Steve Mandanda, old dog, he's still got it, but he hasn't really made a great save here. Parried it out in front of the striker, and Racing Club de Strasbourg have equalised. They're going to park about 10 double-decker buses now to try and get a point here. And I can't believe they've scored, actually. I definitely had them down not to net in this game, Rory. Got a few more minutes just before we finish. While you're here, we'll just talk a little bit about Spanish. I mean, you get around the country quite a bit, as we were talking off air beforehand. Give me, right, the three the toughest places to go in Spain, and say two or three interesting stadiums that anyone might want to visit in that country if they're ever thinking about it.
Interesting question, actually. In terms, I'll leave out the top 3 because everyone knows about them, and they're a boring answer, frankly. In terms of interesting stadiums, if you want to go loud, if you want to go for atmosphere somewhere that you maybe wouldn't think, get yourself to Pamplona, where they run the Bulls. It is absolutely cacophonous in there. They built the stadium kind of designed on the same stadium as Dortmund have, and so the acoustics are similar but smaller, more compact. It's really tight there. I really like
Osasuna, right? Osasuna, isn't it? Yeah.
Osasuna is where you want to go. In terms of other interesting stadiums, Cádiz are really good for atmosphere. I am yet to go, but I really want to go to San Mamés to see Athletic, where they are taking on Valencia just now. And I think, again, the Basque sides do bring a really big atmosphere. Osasuna are just in Nevada, kind of across from the Basque sides, but they are very much a good atmosphere as well. So the Real Arena for atmosphere. And in terms of a tough place to go, you might not get great football, but Getafe are always going to be tough to swallow. They are
like the most hated team in La Liga.
100%, yeah. Their manager has made his living off these days just winding up everyone else. I think it's every second week at least, a manager complains about their style, about them elbowing, kicking, spitting, biting. Who cares? Bordalas doesn't care. He's absolutely loves it. And I think Getafe love him too for it because he gets results.
I mean, whenever I see Getafe, it's like they don't give a crap about their reputation. I mean, they signed Mason Greenwood, which tells for me a lot of things about the club. But I mean, I know they're quite hated. Sam Mem, is that how you pronounce it? I think, isn't it?
San Mamés, yeah.
San Mamés. But that's like 52,000, I think. I mean, they've got an incredible rule where they can only sign Basque. I mean, what's the exact rule? Is it?
I mean,
like you have to be born there, or linked?
It's basically, the rules have been stretched a little in recent years, but it's basically any international wise. If you've got a grandparent, I think you can still play for them. If you've been born there, if you've spent sufficient amount of time in your childhood there as well. So yeah, it is Basque only, but I think that gives them a special connection as well. And they are kind of very much a huge side within the Basque country, and perhaps they don't necessarily make the waves over in Europe, but talk about kind of Newcastle in the north, and they are very much kind of representative of Newcastle and Tyneside and stuff. And there's a huge regional identity and buy-in to Athletic Club and L'Oréal too. They had this rule until 1989, I think it was, when they signed John Toshak. But yeah, both of those sides. And if you look at L'Oréal now, 15 or 16 of their kind of 24, 25-man squad, all academy players as well. So these sides really have a connection with their teams and their fans, and it is really kind of local. These people know the players kind of coming through.
The rivalry and these two teams always remind me quite a bit of Corsica when Ajaccio last year. It's like they're almost their own country in a different sort of way, that they kind of hate each other, but at the same time they've got this connection. If you know what I mean. So I've just the final weekly plugin as always for the Because We Win Instagram account. You would have got that plus 200 winner that Rory advised on the Real Madrid game if you followed Because We Win on Twitter and Instagram. We've got the Premier League predictions from Nigel and Jack on there each week. There's usually a European parlay, which I actually forgot it this week. I was going to get the boys to do it. We'll be doing that again next week. But I've put it in the chat there. Do follow that Instagram account if you've not already. Loads of content on Because We Win this week. We've got the Cricket World Cup in action with John Wright and Ed Hawkins. Been producing a lot of winners there. It's a second goal for Leverkusen. It's come off the goalkeeper. It's going to be an own goal, this one. And they are dominant in that game. Looking good for anyone who did take that Asian handicap at half time on them there. But yes, do give us a follow, give us a like on the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not already, and hit that bell icon. It really does help us out. Any little things like that. But it's been a great chat with you today, Roy, I must say. Really enjoyed it. And I think we're going to see you soon on the international show, probably again on the challenge show as well soon. But you've been in good form this season. You've had some good winners, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been slightly, and I need to start backing longer odds. I think that strategy that we keep talking about during the midweek kind of challenger battle, I think I need to be backing the longer odds, because I've had quite a few winners come in, but just been beaten out by, I think it was RJ most recently, beat me out with a kind of plus 136, which really did for me. So yeah, it's been a pleasure, as you say, Steve. It's always good fun chopping it up with you. And if you are in the Northern Hemisphere, keep us with you to keep you warm during the winter months.
You're certainly not going to be in danger of getting too cold. Can it get cold? Can it get cold in Madrid in the winter?
Madrid's pretty chilly during the winter. I mean, it's dry, but it's chilly. It's only about 10 degrees today, so we're not. It's not very warm.
It's higher than you think. Is Madrid quite a higher altitude than you think?
It's on a kind of plateau, so it's very much flat. There's nothing around it really to keep it warm. And there's a few hills kind of towards the north and towards the south, but actual Madrid, the weather just kind of sits there. It doesn't really move quite that much. So yeah, it is can get pretty chilly in the winter, as I'll attest to, but still the sunshine, so I can't complain too much.
I've not been to Spain for a few years. I've got a friend who's trying to get me out there to Torremolinos in February. I don't know if there's any decent. I don't know if there's any decent soccer stadiums around there worth watching. Not too far from Seville, I don't think. But yeah,
you're probably going up to Seville or Valencia from there.
Seville or Valencia from there. Yeah. Right. Well, thanks again, Roy. Thanks anyone who joined. Watch out for more content on Because We Win this week on all formats. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. And good luck, whatever you're betting. Goodbye.